Welcome! In this episode of Coolgrad videos, we're going to talk about how to write a resume for an application. So a resume is a very important component of an application, and it's important to make an impression to the admission committee by writing a well thought out resume. First of all, what is a resume? Remember, many people pronounce it as resume. It's not a resume but a resume. It's really a French word, and you can see this accent on top of the E. So it's pronounced resume. It's not resume, it's resume. So a resume is a French word that means summary. A resume is essentially a summary of your educational, academic, professional skill set. So a resume is usually a document that you prepare to apply to either a job or to a university. So you custom tailor your resume for each position that you apply to. A resume is a very succinct and concise 1 or 2 page document which lists out all your skill sets which are relevant for that position and a professional summary. A resume is usually written in the third person in order to give it an objective and formal tone. What that means is that you don't write a resume saying, I worked at this company, I worked at that company, or you don't say he or she worked in this company. You just say worked here, did this, did that. So it's written like in a very formal tone in the third person. So what's the curriculum vitae? It's not a curriculum vitae as many people mispronounce. It's a curriculum vitae. So curriculum vitae is a Latin word which means course of life. A curriculum vitae is also called a CV in short form. A CV is a very detailed and comprehensive document which lists out your entire life's achievements, like all your skill sets, all the profiles, all the jobs, all the universities you've attended, all the courses you've done. It's a much more detailed biographical information about your life. A CV consists of much more detail than a resume. It's usually 2 or 3 pages long, or usually much longer, and a CV is used to highlight the general talent of a candidate as opposed to a resume which is specifically tailored for a particular job or a particular position. A CV is used in many places, like say a social dating website or a matrimonial website, or when you're applying to some position like the trustee of a charitable organization. They might want to see your CV. It's about everything you've done in life to see how well suited you are for, various roles. Whereas a resume is specifically tailored for a particular role. And what is a biodata? Now these 3 terms have been used quite confusingly. So we talked about a resume and a CV. A resume is concise, succinct, 1-page document specifically for a job or a university position. CV is a very detailed document that's very generic in nature. And what is a biodata? It's an archaic term which stands for biographical data. And in the past, many years ago, people used to refer to a CV or resume as a biodata. But nowadays, nobody really uses that terminology anymore. So we either call it a resume or a CV. So a biodata is a kind of outdated term, but it used to refer to a curriculum vitae, which is like the generic detailed document which summarizes all your life's achievements, profiles, jobs that you've held, and your academic history. So a biodata is for various kind of social profiling or any kind of positions, and not necessarily tailored for a particular job. Nobody uses the term biodata anymore. So either we write a succinct resume or a detailed curriculum vitae. So let's talk about the optimal length of a resume. How long should a resume be? If you are a fresh undergrad kid and you're applying to university for grad school or even for a PhD program, believe me, the admissions committee would want you to restrict your resume to just 1 or 2 pages at the most. If a youngster with just 2 or 3 years of experience is submitting a 3 or 4 or 5 page resume, it would be annoying for the admissions committee. It's important to restrict the length of a resume to 1 or at the most 2 pages in a standard Word document using a font of at least size 11 or 12. So Remember that the admissions committee consists of 4 or 5 people at the university who are going to be sitting there locked in the room from morning till evening and evaluating profile after profile, hundreds and thousands of profiles of applicants. They don't know you, they know nothing about you, and the only thing they know about you is by what they read in your documents, your transcripts, your resume, your statement of purpose, and the like. And they don't have the patience or the time to go through very detailed documents if they're unnecessarily overwhelmingly detailed. So it's important to restrict the length of the resume to 1 or 2 pages. Make it succinct, brief, and impressive. That's what it's all about. So we should try and optimize the real estate space on the Word document by narrowing down the margins and managing the spacing between the lines and the like. So each resume must be tailored for the particular position. If you're applying, you're writing a resume for a job. For example, you want to be a software engineer in Microsoft for a particular position. You write your resume tailored to that job. Mention the skill sets that are relevant to that job. Mention the courses that you have taken that are relevant to that job. Mention all the keywords that they are looking for. If you're writing a resume for an academic purpose, that is for application to a university for a master's or a PhD program, then you write a resume highlighting your academic achievements, your research publications, and all the job history that is relevant for that particular university to accept you to their department. So I'm going to quickly show you some standard resumes, which will help you understand what a resume should really look like. For example, this is a 1-page resume. So we'll start our name right at the top, and followed by our contact information. Use a professional looking email ID. So you can't use an email ID which says like, catch me if you can at gmail.com or sportstar at yahoo.com. It really has to contain your name and be very professional. So there was a time when I once applied to a job using my personal email ID, which was vinaythegreat@gmail.com, and the person who was referring me to that job, he actually wrote back to me saying, I would appreciate it if you could use a more modest sounding email ID. So that was funny, but your name, if you don't have a professional email ID, create one. It's very simple. So you can say, like I would say, vinaya.kurpar@gmail.com or vinaya.kurpar1234@gmail.com or something like that. Use a professional email ID and list out your phone number along with the country code. Remember that the person who's interviewing you might be sitting in some other country. So if it's India, you say +91. 91 is the country code for India. If it's America, you say 001, which is usually the code that people dial from India. Or you say, my US phone number is this, or my India phone number is this, just to make it clear. And you don't have to list out your entire address over here, your physical mailing address, but you certainly have to list out your city and country, which is kind of professional. And at the top right, you see I've written down the student ID. So when you're applying to a university, the moment you create your profile on the application website, each university gives you a unique student ID. Please mention that number here, because if the document is printed out or misplaced somewhere, they immediately can tie it to your student ID and they know who's applying. So it makes it more professional, and make sure you write the correct student ID. So, Harvard University and Stanford would give you 2 different student IDs. Make sure you don't write the student ID of Stanford on Harvard application. Okay? For each university resume copy that you prepare, tailor it to the specific university that you're applying to and put in the correct student ID at the top right. And then here is a summary of my skill set. So start with saying something about your personality. You're dynamic, you're highly self-motivated, or you're very hardworking, or some kind of positive quality about you. I would say I'm a dynamic software professional with 2 years of experience in the IT industry. And I would say what kind of work I've been doing for the past 2 years. Handling IT operations, web services, for example, in medium and large scale projects. And then say I've implemented an IT help desk team and trained new recruits. For example, a junior person would have done something like that. And for example, this is one of my achievements. Say I'm a member of the Mensa High IQ Society. So That's like only for the top 1 in 100, or actually 2 in 100. So my IQ is certified to be the top 99th percentile of the population. Hey, now that's going to impress the admissions committee, right? So you can also take a test, for example, and qualify to the high IQ society or some other society and put it in there. It makes an impression, right? And you write something about your expertise. You're an expert in some of these tools and also your technical documentation. So you say what you're really good at, for example, and you always include something about interpersonal and communication skills. You say, I'm an excellent team player and I have a very good ability to gel with people. That always makes a good impact. You remember, no company or no university will want to hire a person who cannot get along with people. People skills are mandatory. It's no longer an option, it's a mandatory requirement. You have to be able to get along with people from various cultures and mentalities and get along and work as a team. So, and then you put a matrix of your tool and skill set. It's always good to use a matrix like this. These are the project management tools that I know, and these are the test management tools. These are the testing tools, like say there's Selenium and Load Runner, Set Performer, all these things. Defect tracking tools, like there's Bugzilla, there's Jira, there's HP Quality Center, ALM. These are all standard industry tools, depending on what you've used. And the web servers that you've used, the IBM WebSphere, IIS, Apache, whatever you've used. Languages, so I know C, C++, ASP.NET, Java. So remember that you're not always applying to a technical position or to a computer science department. Even if you're applying to an MBA, and if your undergraduate degree has been something like in fashion designing or maybe in economics. So if you do know some software skills, like say MS Office, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, list it out here. If you know some programming or some database management, which most people these days do know, then you write it here. If you're good at blogging, write about which blog sites you've used, bloggers, and write about that. And they want to see some IT skills in here usually. And there might be other very highly custom tools that you've used in your undergraduate or years of experience, which may not be in IT. But if you're applying for a master's program or a PhD or an MBA or MIS program, you got to think about what you're listing in here. Is it really relevant for that program? Even for an MBA, for example, I tell them I know all these technologies. Yeah, well, that doesn't hurt. Well, but if I'm applying to a master's in psychology, then I don't really have to waste too much time talking about this. I could just mention maybe 2 or 3 rows talking generally about my, skill set. Think about which department you're applying to and what is it that the department would like to see, and write only those tools and skill sets that are relevant for that department. So, write about which operating systems you know something about. That's interesting. And then, work experience. Always write about which company you worked for, in which city, and then from when to when. So, say August 2014 to June 2016 or something like that. And then, what was your role? And this is all detail about your responsibilities. You list out all the jobs you did, all the tasks you did. So you can also say, I spent 50% of my time managing people, I spent 20% of my time creating the documentation for onboarding new recruits, and I spent 10% of my time doing this. If you want, you can be as detail oriented as that. Or you can just list out all the tasks you did. So, and then you talk about your educational qualifications. MTech. For example, if someone has done an MTech, from which university, in which year you graduated, that's important. BE, Computer Science and Engineering, from VTU, that's Vishweshwaraya Technological University in Bangalore. So whichever university you studied in, whichever country, list the university name and list out in which city you studied and in which year you graduated. So you just briefly list it out. And then the academic projects you implemented in your undergrad or previous earlier education. So for example, you say, we implemented this project, say you wrote an app on Salesforce for a very socially productive cause, or you wrote a program for simulation of time division multiplexing using some software, or you developed a hospital management software using C#. So whatever projects you did, try and spend some time, implement a cool project and put it in here. Even if it takes a couple of months more, it's good to put it on the resume. And then in the end you always write about references, and you say references are available upon request. It's usually never a good idea to put your references right on the resume. You say references available upon request. If they shortlist you and they want to interview you, they will ask for references. And if you're applying to a university, you're anyway going to submit 2 or 3 recommendation letters in the application package. So you don't have to list it here again. But it's usually customary to say references available upon request. Now this is the standard format of a resume. Let's look at a standard format of a curriculum vitae. Now that's a much more detailed document. For example, this is my curriculum vitae, and I'm just trying to show you. By the way, these sample formats for the standard format of a resume and a curriculum vitae, they're going to be available, they are available on the coolgrad.com website, and you can download it and use the templates. Now, it's very important to write a resume in the standard format in a very impressive way. Please put some thought and effort into it, it's really worth it. So this is a curriculum vitae. You list out your name and email and phone number. It's again the same thing. And if you're applying to a university, I mean, usually you don't submit a curriculum vitae to a university. Or, yeah, well, to a job, yeah, if you have many years of experience, then your CV will probably be about, say, 4 or 5 pages long, which is okay. So you put in a lot of professional summary out here, and then so at the end of all this professional summary, so we list out the technical skills again, and then we write about professional experience, whichever clients you worked for, and what your role was with each of the clients. And even if you have worked in a full-time position, which company you worked for, which project, which role, what were your responsibilities, you list them all out one after the other. So that was you start always in the reverse chronological order, your latest projects first. So the latest one comes here, and the one before that comes here, and the one before that will come below that. So this goes on, and in the end you write about your educational qualifications, and you say references available upon request. So this is a standard CV. So we talked about the format of a resume. I'm just going to briefly go over it over here in this PowerPoint. So remember, these are the important components of a resume, starting with name and contact info, followed by objective. You can say my objective is to secure admission in Harvard University in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. That might be your objective, or your objective might be to secure a challenging job as a business analyst in Microsoft. That might be your objective. Whatever you're applying for, you can write a one-sentence statement about that. It's optional, but it's highly recommended. And then we can talk about your educational skills, educational background. That's one of the important things in a resume. What all degrees you've already completed, and if you're in the process of pursuing your degree, haven't yet graduated, you say you're doing this and your anticipated graduation date is whatever date in the future, okay? And you write your employment history. Remember, it's in the reverse chronological order. And then you also write about certifications and professional development. So if you have any certifications such as CCNA, MCSE, you know, like Cisco, Microsoft, Oracle, or Salesforce certifications, or anything that's relevant, you can write that here. And then if you want, if you have space, you can write about your volunteer, community, and extracurricular activities. So I'm going to briefly talk about this. So we talked about name and contact info already, make it professional, and then objective, we talked about that as well. Write to which department you're applying, which university, and which semester. That's important. And education is again in reverse chronological order. Masters first, bachelor's, and then anything before that. So academic experience. What was your thesis about? What was your final year project about? Write about your interesting projects. And employment is again in the reverse chronological order. And certifications, for example, this Cisco certifications such as Cisco Certified Network Associate or Cisco Certified Network Professional. And then there's Salesforce 201 admin certification. There's a 501 certification for developers and things like that. Microsoft Certified Software Engineer or Microsoft Certified Software Professional. These are Microsoft certifications. It's good to get some, especially like say Salesforce. These are really hot and happening technologies, and it's good to spend a couple of months and get these certifications and put them there. It's really nice to put on the resume, but don't lie about anything. If you don't have a certification, please don't ruin your chances by lying about it. So volunteer, community, or extracurricular activities. So I've seen some people write about how they were the best chess players in their street. Now that's not something impressive to write on the resume. Any sports competitions that you won at an inter-university level or a state level, national level, or international level are certainly worth putting in here. There's no point in writing, hey, in my street I was the best cricket bowler, I was the best person or something. That is really nothing very impressive, and in fact it's a waste of real estate space on the resume. So if you don't have anything really shining, glamorous out there to put, it's better not to put anything. For example, if you won an Olympic gold medal in gymnastics, oh, of course, that's something worth putting here. You might think, how is that relevant to an application for a master's in computer science or for an MBA? It can be relevant because to win an Olympic gold medal or even a bronze medal, it requires years of dedication, pursuit. It reflects your integrity, your stamina, your being self-motivated, and your dynamic personality. It's definitely worth putting it in there. If you want a national or state level chess championship, it's worth putting it there. Any sport for that matter. If you've been at the inter-university level, that's something worth putting there. Or if you won some awards in public speaking or debates or contests, such as a Toastmasters International. I was one of their prized Toastmasters in Bangalore. So, like say in my high school, if I won say the all Bangalore city level contest, okay, that's something worth putting in there. But don't waste too much time harping on that. But you can just mention something like that. And you can also write about your affiliations with any charitable and social service organizations, such as Red Cross, or Boy Scouts, or Peace Corps. These are worth putting on the resume. But don't waste your time talking about achievements that are really trivial. So, academic versus job resume. So, a job resume might be much longer than 1 or 2 pages. Usually it runs up to 3 or 4 pages, that's okay. But academic resume, please try and restrict it to maximum 2 pages because it's going to annoy the admissions committee otherwise. And separate your work and non-work experiences into different sections. For your academic resume, the work-related employment details must be in a separate section compared to your academic details. And include all your experiences. So, if you're writing a generic curriculum vitae, then you're writing it much more elaborate. But if you're writing it for a academic purpose, you write, or for a particular job, you write about what is relevant for that job. And indicate the amount of time per week, per month you've committed to different experiences. If you want, you can go down to that level of detail in the tasks. In the responsibilities, you can say I spent 25% of my time doing technical documentation, 30% of my time doing QA, quality assurance. So you can, if you want, you can write that level if you want to. And so the references, you can talk about your educational qualifications, but you don't have to list out every course that you took and how much you scored in each course. That's redundant because it's already going to come from your educational transcripts. So as we said, include your student ID at the top right of the application and make sure you include the correct student ID for each application and for each resume. So before submitting, review which university am I applying to, which department, and is this resume tailored for that particular purpose. And have some of your friends and colleagues and parents review your resume. And always remember, prepare your resume on your own. Don't make someone do it for you because sometimes it's quite obvious that somebody else has done it for you. Like a 21-year-old doesn't have the maturity of a 50-year-old person who could be his parent. And sometimes it's very obvious that the parent has done it for the children and they can actually hold it against you. So always write your resume by yourself. In fact, all the documents in your application, write it by yourself. Have it reviewed by people, take their inputs and guidance and advice, but do the work yourself. And you can reduce the margins on the resume make it narrow margins to get more space. And use a font like Arial or Calibri, which don't have feet, like Times New Roman, for example, it has feet at the bottom, which make it more difficult to read. So when you're having presentations or even for documents like that, it's good to use a font like Arial, which don't have the feet at the bottom. And use at least a size 11 font. Just because you have to condense your resume to 1 or 2 pages doesn't mean you can write a 6 or 8 size font, which makes it so difficult for them to read. So you have to use an 11 size font, you have to have all the important details in there, and it also has to be condensed to maximum 2 pages. Okay? How to boost your profile, how to make your resume more attractive. Maybe it's worth spending a couple of months and learning a foreign language, such as French, German or Spanish, and you say, hey, I know I've done 1 or 2 levels of French from Alliance Française or German or something like that, and that really makes your resume stand out from the other resumes. And then you can take an IQ test, like for example, Paul Quillmans, he's one of an international standard IQ test provider, and you can take an IQ test and qualify to a high IQ society. Now that sets your resume apart from hundreds of thousands of other candidates who are applying. Remember, there is very fierce competition. And then you can get certifications such as these and put them on your profile to boost your profile and make it look really impressive. So that brings us to the end of this video about how to write an impressive resume. So now look at the standard resume templates that I've provided on coolgrad.com and start writing your resume. Thank you. Good luck. Vinaya Kurpan.